What's up, familia? Welcome inside the pad. Hope you guys are doing good. Keep your on the lines. Got your load secure. Okay. Tis the season. It is that time of the year. It's the most wonderful time. I shouldn't be singing, but of the year, right? Um, this is actually sparked up a little bit more controversy with people believing different things, and I kind of want to dig into it a little bit, right? Because I think most people celebrate Christmas. Well, we'll get into it. But hey, I don't really know much. Let me go ahead and bring in a good friend of mine that knows a heck of a lot more than I do. That is my good friend from House of Rest Church One, Mr. Pastor David Rocha.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing good, doing good. Just here, just finished a podcast. We do a podcast every week with my younger brother and another brother from the church here.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. It's guy talk, Christian style. I
Yeah,
yeah. No, I dig it. Like I was telling you off air, usually I'm trucking along and I
yeah,
got it on, but I don't really get a chance to get in the chats or anything. But yeah, it's a good time. It's a good time. Just just hearing the boys just chop it up. So
yeah.
hey, Pastor, for those that don't know me, I'll let it be known. I'm a huge Christmas freak. I love Christmas time. I love the songs, everything, the whole season about Christmas, right? And to me, Christmas season is from December 1st to the 25th. The movies, the music, all that stuff. I don't listen to any Christmas songs, no Christmas movies, no anything, only in that slate of time. Outside of that, everybody knows if there's a Christmas movie on TV, hey, turn it off. What are you doing? Or change it. It's not Christmas time. That's just how I roll.
Yeah,
I'm a real Christmas freak, but Pastor,
yeah,
um, there I think there's two arguments here that we need to get into, right? One of them is, uh, do most people even celebrate Jesus on Christmas anymore? Um, but the one that I really want to get into, which we will get into that,
yeah,
because honestly, I think that's kind of gone out the window. I think everything else has kind of taken over: the gift shopping, the decorations, the eggnogs, the family, the gifts, that all that stuff, and Jesus has kind of it's kind of like out the window for the most part. But the first one I really want to tackle, which I think is probably the most controversial one, Pastor, is Christmas. Should
yeah.
we even be celebrating Christmas? And what does the Bible say, Pastor, about celebrating Christmas? Because in reality, Christmas is not in the Bible. So uh, I see churches, you know, come up and say, hey, there's an important time of celebrating Jesus' birth and all that. I think at this point, Pastor, most people understand that Jesus most likely was not born on December 25th. There's a little bit of, evidence to show that, yeah, most likely he wasn't. Doesn't guarantee that he wasn't, but most
Yeah.
likely he wasn't. So, Pastor, what's up with Christmas? Um, why do we celebrate Christmas? And let's get a little bit into the paganism history in it.
Yeah,
But I'll just start with you, Pastor. Do you celebrate Christmas?
yeah, yeah, I do. And actually, let me start a little light. I love Christmas season.
Mm,
There's three cartoons that I had to watch every single year: The
mm,
Grinch,
mm.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and Frosty the Snowman. Four, I'm sorry, and then the Charlie Brown.
Okay. Okay. I,
Yeah,
I just want to point something out.
I had to
The,
watch
the,
them.
okay. All of them good. Okay. I just want to point something out. The Grinch movie with Jim Carrey is horrible.
I'm
But
talking about the cartoon.
yes, the animated, oh, that's classic. You got to
The
do that every.
cartoon. The cartoon was hilarious. Every time it made me laugh. And then for me, a lot of people say a different movie than this one, but for me, it's always Christmas Vacation, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation with Chevy Chase. That
Mm,
movie is hilarious. I laugh every time. And then a close second is, and it's a newer movie, Home Alone. Home Alone
it's
makes me laugh. I don't know if it's because my kids watching it, grow up with them watching them grow up watching it, but that movie cracks me up.
wait a second. Home Alone came out in 1990, I think it
Yeah,
was.
that's what I'm saying. My daughter was born in '89, so she was a
Oh,
child. You know what I
gotcha.
mean? So watching them watch it every year made
Yeah.
it a tradition for me now.
Well, yeah, it's those are good classic movies. I love
One
those
and
two
two,
movies.
one and two.
I got to go with the movie Scrooge with Bill Murray, circa 1988. Oh yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So no, so you and I definitely love Christmas season.
Yeah, yeah,
We celebrate Christmas. I do have a Christmas tree in my living room, which we'll get to in just a second. But
yeah,
I do have decorations up. So yeah, I do whatever what anybody would think. Oh, you celebrate Christmas. What anybody thinks, the lights, the tree,
yeah,
and
yeah,
all that stuff. We do that, Pastor. So,
yeah.
Pastor,
So back to the original question, right?
the original question, Pastor. Let's talk about where did Christmas come from, Pastor?
You know, it's interesting because a lot of the times there's a conflict where I think there shouldn't be a conflict. Um, it's very clear that Jesus was not born December 25th. Matter of fact, you know how the Bible says that the shepherds were out and the angels came and started to sing? Well, the very fact that the shepherds were out kind of shows because the shepherds still come out in certain seasons in that place, and it's during springtime because that's when the grass is green. That's when they're eating, they're eating the grass and stuff when the so it's highly likely that Jesus was born in springtime. But the reason it was December 25th is an interesting thing. And depending on what perspective you look at it, somebody's gonna say that it's pagan, or I'm gonna give an alternative perspective that is what I stand on. Is see, a lot of times, man, we try to understand the Bible with our Western eyes, with our not realizing this is a Middle East book with Middle East customs and Middle East traditions. And so all you got to do is look at history. And every single time that a kingdom or an empire would conquer another empire, the only way they could truly bring the people into submission is to build on top of those people's temples. Because if you came into a nation and if you destroyed their statues, their idols, their temples, you forced the people to submit because they would see it like, man, not even our God can stop them. So it was a normal thing. This is why you go into any of the ancient ruins, and if you notice, there's city built on city, built on city, built on city. That was on purpose because a nation that would come and conquer you will build over your stuff to show that they have overpowered you. Now, keep that thought in mind. December 25th was a birthday of a pagan god, one of the most important pagan gods that the Greeks and all of them would worship. So, at a time when Christianity started to overtake the Roman Empire, there was a conversion, like in I think in 325 A.D. Constantine, which was a Roman emperor, basically supposedly in his last dying days, that's between him and God, he converted to Christianity and basically changed the Roman Empire from pagan to Christianity. But here's the problem: if somebody came and conquered us in America right now, if somebody came that did not celebrate Christmas, like you saying you love Christmas, there's nothing, you love it, you love everything about it. Imagine if some communist nation took America over and said, you are not allowed to celebrate Christmas anymore. Well, guess what would happen? You would still celebrate it. You'd celebrate it in other ways, in ways that maybe that government couldn't see, but you couldn't take Christmas out of your heart, in a sense. So you would still celebrate Christmas. So here's what was happening: is Christianity took over the Roman Empire, but the people were so stuck on that pagan god that they would celebrate on December 25th. So what better way to show that Christ overpowers every other god than to say, you know what, we're going to celebrate the birth of Christ because we know that he was born on we know he was born. Somewhere in the calendar he was born. But you know what we're going to do? We're going to show that that pagan god is nothing compared to Christ. So instead of celebrating that pagan god, instead we're going to choose that very day to celebrate the birth of Jesus. And it's interesting because hundreds of years later, nobody even knows who that pagan god is. In other words, the cross and Christ was built over that to the point where it's now no longer relevant anymore. It means nothing anymore because now, in other words, the Christian belief of celebrating the birth of Christ has taken over that day. Now, everywhere around the world, everybody knows the whole world celebrates his birth. Whether that's the day or not, the whole world recognizes the name of Jesus. Nobody remembers this pagan god's name unless you Google him.
Right. And that doing a lot of research on this for quite a while,
Mhm.
quite a long time. Um, I think what you said there is probably the most popular theory that I ran into, where it's like, oh, you know what? It was to replace some of these pagans, worshiping of the sun and so many other pagans, and one was crazy, Sol Invictus. Not that they were born, different dates come up in December
Yeah.
17th, somewhere around that area. What tripped me out, the reason why I brought up Sol Invictus, is that it really, really looks like the Statue of Liberty that was
Mm.
built that was built by the French and gifted to us over here in the
Yeah.
United States. I'm like, whoa, that looks just like Lady Liberty. But that's a conversation for another day. Uh,
Yeah.
no, that's probably the most popular theory I ran into, Pastor. There's so much out there. Okay, it's so crazy. You got so many believers fighting each other. Like they know,
Yeah.
they know. Like, no, this is the truth. That's the truth. It's like there is no really room to say like, well, you know what? Maybe we don't know, right?
Mhm.
One argument, Pastor, is it never says in the Bible
No.
to celebrate the birth of Jesus. Um, is that it? I mean, it's nowhere in the Bible. It's man-made. Um, can that be looked at, Pastor? Is there some room there to say like, well, listen, this is man-made, before we get to the whole Santa Claus and all that stuff, just the celebrations, like, hey, this is man-made. No, nobody there are, look, and this is the thing I'm talking about, like, like Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacle, the Passover, that the world doesn't really celebrate those. Not the
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
not,
let me.
not like Christmas, how you mentioned, the world as a whole does not celebrate those. A lot of people, you say, hey, Sukkot, and they're like, What's that?" But those are actually in the Bible.
Mhm.
Christmas is a little bit more man-made. Pastor, is there a little bit room to maybe think about in
Yeah.
that sense?
That's a really good point. Now, as a Christian, my my most important date to remember for me is number one is communion. That's the one thing Jesus says to do this in remembrance of me. So that is the most important thing. This literally out of the mouth of Jesus, he says, do this and remember. So when we have communion here, we do it once a month, every first Sunday of the month. And that's not something that just a little side thing we do. This is really important because Jesus himself says, "Do this in remembrance of me." So we honor communion big time, big time. Now, secondly, I honor the day that he resurrected. I don't call it Easter. Sometimes I'll call it Easter to people because just they'll know what I'm talking about. Because usually, if you attend here, I call it Resurrection Day. You
Okay.
know, but Christmas, um, it's not in the Bible. But I will say this: that there's nothing wrong with a custom as long as it doesn't deviate you from God, as long as it doesn't deviate you from Christ, as long as it doesn't deviate you from what the Bible says. For instance, let's say your family, let's say your kids, right? There's something that you took them to every single time they got out of school for the summer, and they always went to, let's say, a lake. They always went there. You took them all your life, and then when they grow up, they take their kids to that lake every single time they get off of summer. It becomes a custom, it becomes a tradition, it becomes something important because they'll say, "This meant a lot to my dad, and I want this to mean a lot to you for your children and your children's children." See, there's nothing wrong in that. There's nothing wrong with saying, "This is a tradition, this is what we do, this is a time of family." That's how I see Christmas. So, number one, I honor God because I know that He was born sometime. So, I'm going to celebrate December 25th as Christmas because the whole world does. But you know me, I celebrate the life of Christ every day of my life.
Right. Yes.
You
Yes.
know, it's not like I only think of Jesus on December 25th, but I choose to celebrate because a lot of it is, I don't see it as causing sin. I don't see it causing me to deviate from scripture. Now, if I start to make things about the material things, or I start to make it about a lot of Christmas tradition that takes away from Christ, like when people, like I enjoy the Rudolph Red-Nosed cartoon. I enjoyed it as a cartoon, but my parents always told us as children, today's about Jesus. We're celebrating because Jesus was born. We give gifts because he was the greatest gift to us, things like that. So we understood as children that Christmas meant Jesus. But at the same time, they didn't stifle us and not let us enjoy Frosty the Snowman cartoon or the Charlie Brown tree or things like that. But so I think it's important to teach our children what Christmas is and what it's not. Even if it's not in the Bible, I think if you can still bring the Bible into it. For instance, my brother, he always uses Christmas time to read the time when Jesus was born to his children. He has made that a tradition. That, I mean, I was in prison a lot of times. My kids were growing up, so a lot of times my kids were with his kids. And Christmas Eve, he would sit them down and he would read the story in the Bible when Jesus was born and explain it. So he would use that as an opportunity. So can we say that's man-made? Yeah. But can we use a man-made thing to honor God? Yes. But am I gonna die for Christmas? Is that the hill I'm gonna stand and die on for Christmas? No, it's not. There's other days more important to me than Christmas. That makes sense?
Yes, yes, it makes sense. And there's so many different theories out there that people take as truth, and
Yeah.
that's why I think it's got so many believers, ripping each other's heads off verbally, of course.
Yeah.
Um, there was another theory that actually the celebration of Christmas was before the paganism. And then another theory I stumbled across was Macrobus. I should have wrote this down. I think it's pronounced Macrobus or something of that sort, where it actually has nothing to do with the birth of Jesus. It's actually um, I forgot what year. I really should have wrote this stuff down. Where uh, they came back and they took over their temple. Good gosh, man! I wish I could remember. I really should have wrote this stuff down. But um, one of the things was December 25th was chosen because for whatever reason they believed that Jesus died on the day that he was conceived, and they believed that it was March 25th. You fast forward 9 months, you got December 25th. I mean, there's
Mhm.
there's so many, there's so much
Yeah.
there is basically just what you choose to believe. But Pastor, I got the New King James Version here of the Bible, and I do
Yeah.
want to go over a few scriptures
Okay.
when we're talking about Christmas that people do use. Let me see. Should I don't have a lot of room here.
I'll bring it up too. That way, when you tell me what it
Yeah, I
is.
want to go to Jeremiah chapter 10.
Mm-hmm.
Most people that say that that you shouldn't celebrate Christmas, and it's specifically about the Christmas tree,
Yeah.
use Jeremiah chapter 10, starting at verse 2. It says, again, I'm reading out of the New King James Version. It says, "Do not learn the way of the Gentiles. Do not be dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the Gentiles are dismayed at them. For the customs of the peoples are futile. For one cuts a tree from the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with the axe. They decorate it with silver and gold. They fasten it with nails and hammers, so it will not topple." Going to verse 5. "They are upright like a palm tree, and they cannot speak. They must be carried because they cannot go by themselves. Do not be afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, nor can they do any good." So, Pastor, people, certain people like to believe that this is talking about the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Um, there are believers that are saying that, hey, a lot of what you do during Christmas is actually paganism. Um, Starting with the Christmas tree,
Yeah.
starting the colors, a lot of the decorations, a lot of what you do was, actually brought up with the pagans. So, they use some of these verses. When you read that, Pastor,
Mm-hmm.
what do you make of it?
Well, number one, Jeremiah was written hundreds and hundreds of years before anything of the Greek mythology, pagan gods. Number one. Number two, if you really look at this, let's read it again. In verse 2, it says, "Do not learn the ways of the Gentiles. Do not be dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the Gentiles are dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are futile. For one cuts the tree from the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with the axe."
Right.
See, this is not talking about bringing a tree into your house. This is about, see, you know how they would make statues? They would make them out of trees.
Mhm.
So this
Right.
person cut a tree down and he worked it into his god, into his idol, and they made a god out of it. And then they were ordained it with silver, with gold. They'd fasten it with nails so it would stand upright because this false idol was going to topple over if it didn't have something to hold it up. They're upright like a palm tree. A palm tree has no leaves. You know what I mean? It's just like straight up. And it says they can't speak. So obviously, the fact that God is saying here they can't speak means that these people were cutting his tree down, making gods out of it, and they couldn't even talk, and they had to be carried around. It says they must be carried because they cannot go by themselves. Do not be afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, nor can they do any good. In other words, God is saying that is just a tree. Why are you worshiping a tree? Somebody, it says a craftsman, a workman shaped that thing into make it look what it wanted to look like. Why are you adorning it and worshiping this thing? And so again, our Western eyes look at something that was written hundreds of years before the mythological Greek or Roman gods and trying to apply it. And it's out of context when we use that. It's the same thing with tattoos. You know what I mean? Like I do not condone tattoos as a Christian, but I can't stand when Christians bring up the Old Testament when it talks about don't get tattoos. I don't like that because it's out of context. You cannot use that scripture against tattoos. You can't use this scripture against Christmas trees. It's out of context completely.
And that's probably the argument that I hear against it is that, hey, you know what? If you read it just the way you said, the workman with the axe, right? It's a craftsman that he carved out an idol for it. It doesn't necessarily say that specifically, but we're talking about a workman. We're talking about he crafted it with an axe.
Yeah,
Uh, so I mean, yeah, I could definitely see that. It's not so much cutting down the tree. Now, if you if you worship the Christmas tree, well then I guess there's
yeah,
there's a whole
yeah.
another
That
issue.
yeah, that's a whole other thing. That's
Right.
a completely whole other thing. Now, but I don't. I've never told Christians, hey, to be if you're a real Christian, you're going to get a tree. I'm like, if you feel conviction for getting a tree, don't get a tree. But if you somebody else does, don't judge them on it. But I do tell the person that doesn't get a tree, I'm like, if you have a true conviction against a tree, then at least know the truth. Don't get a false guilt or false conviction because of what you're reading in Jeremiah. At least know the truth of in the context of what he's talking about before you make up your mind. Because we need to read the Bible in context. And so many people just read it at face value and without. Here's the thing, man. I know Spanish and English. Even Spanish and English, if I get a Spanish letter and tell five people to translate it into English, there's certain words that don't translate well. There's certain English words that don't translate well. Now, if that is hard within our own time period, try translating something that was written in Hebrew, 4,000, 3,000 years ago, and trying to translate it into English and reading it with our Western eyes in 2024. And we're going to get it out of context. So anytime you read the Bible, I tell people, I mean, not everybody can be a scholar, but at the least we can do is the what, why, where, and how. What was happening at that time? Who wrote it? What was going on? How was, you have to ask these questions in order to try your best to get the context of what it's saying. Even if we're reading it in English, at least try to figure out who was written to, what was written to, why was he saying that, what was happening at that time, to at least get a glimpse of it. Because most of us can't read Hebrew. But the least we can do is understand the customs and the culture of that time to get a little bit of a glimpse. And the fact was that this scripture didn't have to exactly say, thou shalt not cut down a tree and cut a statue and an idol. He didn't have to say that because by saying this, the people of that time understood what God was saying. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes.
He didn't have to spoon feed it to them because they understood what it was saying.
Okay. I mean, that's I understand what you're saying. Um, I know there's some people out there that says no, that clearly states that you shouldn't celebrate Christmas, or at the very least not have a Christmas tree. Well, whatever anybody takes from that, they take from it.
Yeah.
Pastor, how about just the simple fact of, hey, you know what? The world hates God. So if the world hates God, why would the world recognize Christmas? The
Mm-hmm.
world does not, as a whole, recognize the Feast of Tabernacles, and that kind of makes sense. It's like, yeah, you know what? That's true. Sukkot. Nobody really
Yeah.
talks about that, and nobody really celebrates it. And actually, looking at Sukkot, I thought it was actually kind of cool. I never really even heard of it
Yeah.
till recently, and I'm like, huh, that that does sound, get out in nature. You leave the electronics. Basically, it's like you go camping with
Yeah.
your loved ones, and you guys connect with your loved ones and with God, right? And I thought that's actually sounded pretty cool. And I'm like, right. And people that make the argument like, hey, listen, the world hates God. So do you think a man-made tradition holiday in Christmas You think the world would really recognize it in honoring the Lord? That's an interesting way to look at it, Pastor. What do you make of
Yeah.
that?
Well, I would say this. I would counter that by saying exactly the world hates the Lord. They hate Jesus. That's why they'll take out Christ and put X and put Xmas. That's
Okay.
why instead of Merry Christmas, they'll say Happy Holidays because the government wants to take Jesus out of it. So I would say that the world doesn't all love. The world does hate God, and even though it's a tradition and it's a celebration and all that, I think the world wants to take Christ out of it and make it more about Santa, and take Christ out of it and make it more about materialism and gifts and this and that. And so I would counter that with that. With I see the opposite. I see the world wanting to take Jesus out of Christmas.
Okay. I mean, that we're basically here. We're turning the page, and we're going to get into that subject right now.
Yeah.
Look, honestly, Pastor. Well, first of all, let me ask you, Pastor. Are you saying that we shouldn't give gifts?
No, I think it's a beautiful thing. I think
Yeah,
aside from it,
I want to go on record and say that I am saying that we shouldn't give gifts. All right, so that's just me saying it, not Pastor
yeah,
David Rocha from House of Rest Church. I'm saying we shouldn't give gifts.
yeah, I love the fact of giving my children gifts when they were small.
Mhm.
I don't go all out anymore now that all my kids are adults now. Every single one of them. I mean, I'll give them a gift card to a restaurant or just something, $20, $30 gift card or $50, depends maybe. But when my kids were little, oh man, it especially getting out of prison, brother, getting out of prison and being able to see them smile and open those gifts. So I love that. I love, and if I can afford it, there's times me and my wife, me and Sharon, we haven't. There's times we couldn't give each other gifts, but we would give our grandchildren gifts. And if it meant us not giving each other one, as long as we could see the grandkids smile, So, but as far as when people go all out and go crazy as adults, uh,
That's
yeah,
what I'm talking about. Okay.
yeah,
That's what, yes, I'm all for giving your kids gifts and gifts for kids. I'm all about that. Both of my sons are adults as well.
yeah.
I'm all for that. But what's with the adults over there? That part I don't understand. Okay, so now that we're turning the page, Pastor,
Yeah.
well, just to end it, Pastor, on that subject. So if somebody comes up to you and says, like, "Hey, listen, I don't celebrate Christmas because of its pagan traditions. And some of the things in Christmas have some paganism in it or paganism backgrounds. Again, there's so many theories out there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if anybody actually truly knows the truth. And they tell you everything that I said, like, hey, it's not in the Bible, so
Yeah.
it's man made. So maybe we shouldn't do it. As a matter of fact, heck, I forgot what verse it was, where God says, do not celebrate me as they celebrate their gods, their other idols. So, I mean, isn't there something there, Pastor, for them to have a leg to stand on?
If somebody, and people have approached me with that before, and usually this is what happens. As I say, brother, I said, the Bible does say that if something is a sin to you, then it is a sin. I said, I'm not going to convince you to get a tree or to even give gifts. I'm not going to convince you of that. I said, but I will say this to you, and I'm going to talk to you the way I would that person. I'm going to say, but be really careful when you use the pagan reason. Because if you are not celebrating Christmas because of pagan reasons, then you got to make sure you don't ever have a dollar bill because it has a pagan pyramid with the all seeing eye on it. Make sure you never drink Starbucks because it has a pagan logo on it. Make sure you don't wear Nike because Nike is actually the name of a Greek god. Make sure you never say Wednesday because Wednesday is named after the god Woden. Never mention July because that celebrates Julius Caesar. Never celebrate, never mention months, never mention dates, never don't go, because and the thing was this is Paul, the apostle Paul lived in a very, very Greek pagan world. He didn't go hide in a cave. He understood how to maneuver the gospel through all of that paganism. So paganism is not something new. It's always been there. It was there in the time of Jesus. It was there in the time of the book of Acts. It was there in the time of Paul. They didn't run away. They didn't go hide in caves. They still lived in the society. Matter of fact, you couldn't buy meat at a meat market back then unless it was offered to an idol first. So if you went down to the marqueta to buy some carne asada, every single piece of those meats were sacrificed to gods. That's why Paul says, hey, he goes, if somebody offers you meat, don't even ask where it came from, just eat it because all things are from the Lord anyways. So and then he said, but if it causes you to stumble, then don't eat it. So Paul knew how to maneuver in a pagan world. So if somebody ever uses that pagan thing with me, I'm gonna say, you sure you want to go down that? Because you're gonna end up becoming a hypocrite if you're saying you don't celebrate Christmas because it's pagan, but you're doing all this other pagan stuff with pagan money in your pocket. So it's a slippery slope. You know what I mean? So that's what and I don't say it very smart or matter of factly. I'm just trying to educate them.
And you know what, Pastor? It could all be wrong. Maybe we're all getting it wrong. Maybe it all is paganism, and we're not supposed to indulge in any of it whatsoever. That's why I like having these conversations. Maybe it's all wrong, all across the
Yeah.
board.
What do you?
But
Okay. Let me
but
say
you're
this real
right.
quick. Let me say this real quick. You love going to games.
I do.
Imagine if Apostle Paul just popped up in a Back to the Future type of DeLorean car and he saw a stadium like that with everybody cheering, wearing one color, worshiping. He would think it was a pagan temple.
Mm,
And he would say, you're worshiping this, whatever mascot, whatever this logo is, whatever. But you're not worshiping that. Those are just teams you enjoy.
mm, okay.
So we have to be careful. You know what I mean? So um, a lot of things will probably seem pagan to somebody from 2,000 years ago if they came in a DeLorean. People lined up at a Starbucks and they would see that logo. They'd be like, "Whoa, what is this? Are they giving to this temple?" You know, you
Mm.
know. So yeah, man, we got to. It's a slippery slope when you get into paganism.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll definitely give my true thoughts on it when we're done here. Let's talk about what Christmas is turning into, Pastor. You were
Yeah,
alluding to it a little bit just a little earlier, and look, I've been seeing it happening for years, right?
yeah,
Uh, it's more and more of uh, whatever it is that we see on TV. It's more and more of the shopping. You know, right now that we're in the season, people are asking me, "Oh, are you ready for Christmas?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." I just tell them I'm not ready for the Christmas season to end because I like the season. But yes, I'm ready for Christmas. And then every single person, Pastor, every single person, just about every year for I don't know how many years now, are they when they say, "Are you ready for Christmas?" They kind of like, no, I still got to go out and get this, go out and get that. And it's like, hey, it's not a stressful time.
yeah,
This is a time to celebrate the birth of Jesus. For
yeah,
those that choose not to celebrate Christmas, respects to you. But for those that saying that they no, they do celebrate Christmas because to celebrate the birth of Jesus. Um, every time I come across people, they're stressed. They have a little bit of anxiety going on
yeah,
because it's like, oh, I still got to go out and do some shopping, and let me check my watch. What date is this? Okay, I got like 8 more days. I still got to get something for this person. It's like, what are you doing?
yeah,
What are we doing here? And then here's the part that gets me, Pastor, because you say like, hey, it's not supposed to be stressful. We're supposed to celebrate the birth. Oh yeah, yeah, no, yeah, of course, absolutely. Oh, you know what? I go to my church. But it's like, okay, then why are you stressed out for?
yeah,
Why are you stressed out? So it actually is becoming about getting gifts
yeah,
because really that's what's in your mind more than anything else.
yeah,
The only time you think about the Lord, anytime you think about Jesus, if it's somebody brings it up to you. But as soon as you hear Christmas, you think about, okay, I got to think about what I got to get for this person, what I got to get for that person, what am I going to get this person over there. That's what I'm saying. I wouldn't, honestly, Pastor, I'm saying, like, outside of kids, get rid of gifts. I mean, what are we doing? Why are we putting so much pressure on
Yeah.
people? And that, I think that's a big part. And I know people are going to call me cheap. I don't, that's fine. I don't care. But I mean, you're getting rid of what is supposed to be that everybody says why they celebrate it, Pastor.
I haven't I haven't bought one gift.
Neither have I.
I haven't bought one gift. I mean, we're gonna buy gifts for our grandkids. We have a
Yeah.
grandson down in San Fernando, and
Mhm.
we have three granddaughters here. One is just barely 8 weeks old. We
Right.
have three here. So I mean, of course, we're gonna get them gifts. I like to get my mother and my father something small because I mean, we don't have our parents forever. You know, the
Right.
Bible says to honor your father and your mother. So I like to get something for my parents and something for Sharon's stepdad and her mom. Because they're older and we want to honor them. But anybody else, if I mean, maybe if I have something or if I see something, sometimes it'll be a gag, something funny, or whatever. But
Right.
I'm not stressing out. I don't got a list of a bunch of people that I got to get gifts for. I just don't. My
Yeah.
Let me say this: my oldest daughter. I love this about my oldest daughter. Um, she has always, with our granddaughters, handmade every gift. They will bake cookies. They will make a little card. You know what I mean? And she's teaching our granddaughters this. So she doesn't spend a lot of money, and they always, and my granddaughters come and hand us this thing of cookies that they made with their little hands, and man, that's the best, brother.
Oh yeah.
And she's teaching that to them.
And that's I like that. I like that. Pastor, even some of the stories that we hear about Christmas. Yeah, Jesus was born, right?
Yeah.
And here come the three wise men. Um, the Bible never specifically says that there's three wise men,
Mm.
and it said they brought three gifts, but not that there was three wise men.
No.
That's what we're told, that hey, the three wise men showed up. And if you read into it, Pastor, it almost seems like they didn't even show up when Jesus was born. It looks like they showed up when he was actually a toddler.
Yeah, it was later on in life, most likely. I mean, we weren't there, but
Right.
it I think it's more truth that they showed up a lot later, not that night. I mean, it makes for a great kid story, but I mean, for us adults, I mean, the wise, we don't know. It doesn't say three, and you're right, and it doesn't say they showed up right then and there.
Yeah. I believe that for most of my life till just recently.
Yeah,
That's why I tell people, listen, it's good that you go to church. It's good that you have a good pastor pastoring to you, but you got to read the Bible on your own, because up until a few months ago, I believed that there was three wise men, because that's what I was told. I believe,
uh,
and I was like, huh, I'd like to know more about the three wise men, man. Let me look
yeah,
into the three wise men. Come to find out, we don't know anything about the wise men, just that they came from the east. Like
yeah,
that's, I mean, that right there, it's, I think that's kind of cool for me, because it's
yeah,
like, wow, just the mysterious of it. Like, man, you know what? The wise men came. Maybe there were three, maybe there were more. Uh, but I enjoyed that, Pastor. I really did enjoy, finding that out from myself. And I always recommend people read the Bible on your own. Don't just go to church and have the pastor. Even you got a good pastor, yes, but read it for yourself as well, because I never knew that. I never
and
knew that.
even the fact that they didn't live in a manger. I mean, the Bible says he was born in a manger, but most
Right.
likely the very next day they went and found some place to be at. He wasn't just they weren't just living amongst animals.
Pastor, um, I have gone to many Christmas parties.
Yeah,
I have gone to spend time with my family for Christmas. Look, and shout outs to everybody who's watching this. That's that's related to me or whatever. I love everyone, but while it's acknowledged that, oh, we're celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ, I there's little to no scripture being read. There's, a
yeah,
prayer for a prayer for dinner. We have the pozole, we have the tamales. There's a prayer for dinner, and that's about it.
yeah,
Everything else is Christmas. Everything else is okay. We're gonna do the gifts, and nobody's doing anything bad or wrong or anything. But I there, I don't walk out of there saying like, wow, I just felt the love for Jesus Christ. That
yeah,
that really wasn't the atmosphere. I've never
yeah,
been to a party, pastor, outside of church, of course,
yeah,
where people celebrate like that. Like, no, no, okay, yes, we got the tree, we got some gifts, we got some dinner, but listen, this is the day. This is a holy day that we're celebrating and setting aside, for the Lord, for the birth of Jesus Christ, right? Like you said, celebrate every day with
yeah,
with yourself of Jesus. But for the most part, Pastor, yeah, I hear people bring up the birth of Jesus, and oh yeah, that's what I'm gonna celebrate. But you go to their celebrations, including the ones I've gone to, there's really little to no
yeah,
mentions about it, Pastor. I mean, I think it's being lost more and more as the years go on.
yeah. Yeah, no, I think so. I believe that. Unfortunately, we can't stop it. Nothing we can do. I remember 2 years ago, it was Christmas because my parents got married in December, and it was really close to Christmas. And we decided 2 years ago on their 60th anniversary that we were each going to share to them what they meant to us, my mom and my dad. Oh man, it was a room full of tears. I couldn't even get through my first sentence. I was just crying the whole time because when I start to think about everything they instilled in me, you know what I mean? So that was a beautiful thing. I mean, and of course, because I'm a pastor, my brother Angel's a pastor, so God came up a lot into it, you know what I mean? And it was a beautiful, that's probably one of the most memorable times I've had where outside of church, even within us of being a Christian family, that it would just, I mean, Jesus was all over it, and that was a beautiful thing. And it'd be nice, if we could, if we're gonna allocate December 25th to Jesus, it would be nice to allow Jesus to come in to Christmas because we've kicked him out.
Oh my goodness, you worded that perfectly, Pastor. I think, the way I see it, and not just now, but it's been like this for years. The way I see it, Pastor, is
Yeah,
that Jesus is the last one to be invited to Christmas.
yeah,
He is the absolute last one. He is probably the least mentioned. You're talking about other family members. You're talking about so many other things, but I rarely hear anybody talk about Jesus. I rarely hear any. I mean, unless somebody brings it up. Oh yeah, you know what? Yeah, it's the birth of Jesus Christ. That's why we're celebrating.
yeah,
But I don't see Jesus anywhere
yeah,
in the celebrations. And not only that, Pastor, but how we're covering the paganism a little bit. Some of the way they used to worship their gods is a way I see a lot of these Christmas parties, with gluttony and alcohol, and it's like,
yeah,
you know, if you're saying it's about Jesus, then maybe it should be about Jesus. And I'm no sweet little angel in this. Okay, I want to make that 100% clear. I'm no sweet little angel. I've been a part of these parties where it's just like it really has little or nothing to do with Jesus. Jesus did not get his invitation, and I think that's happening more and more. It's about gift giving and the white elephant, or hey, you know what? We'll just mysteriously give gifts here or
yeah,
whatever. I forgot what it's called, and it's like it has nothing to do with what everybody says. Again, they say it with their mouth what
Yeah,
they're celebrating. And I think, Pastor, I think that's probably where it gets lost.
yeah,
Where when somebody says, "Hey, you know what? Look, yes, Christmas is not in the Bible, right? It's man made. Should we celebrate Christmas? Should we not celebrate Christmas?" Well, if you see the way a lot of people celebrate Christmas, I think you can make a strong argument to say, like, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't, or maybe certain people, or maybe most people shouldn't celebrate Christmas because they're actually celebrating in a way where Jesus is just not there.
yeah. No, I agree. I think another point you didn't bring up, I don't know if you were, was Santa Claus.
Oh yes, good old Jolly Saint Nick.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of Christians, they hate Santa Claus. They can't stand it. But I remember looking into it, and actually, what it's become, yeah, it's a replacement for Jesus. But there was a Saint Nick. There really was a person. Matter of fact, he was born 270 years after Christ. And he was a man that was a Christian and he loved the Lord. And he truly did make gifts and gave them away to his village, to the children in his village. And he loved the Lord. And he'd probably turned over in his grave if he realized what they've turned him into, because they've turned him into a caricature or a replacement of Christ. But the fact is, he really was a Christian, loved the Lord, made gifts, gave them away in his village, helped the people in his village, helped the poor people in his village, fed the people in his village. And I have it here. He died in 343, so he lived a good for 70 years. Uh, the Catholic Church made him a saint later, because the way the Catholic Church does, and that's a whole other thing. But there was a man named Saint Nick himself. So it derived from a real person. And so even then, the world has turned it into something else.
Yeah, and I think he had a day like December 6th or something of that sort where
December
he.
6th is when he died.
Okay, got it, got it,
I have
got
it
it.
right here. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's strangely enough, Pastor, from what I understand, Coca-Cola had a lot to do with turning him into the
Yeah.
character that we see today. That's
Yeah. It's
strange.
true.
I was like, wait, like Coca-Cola, the soda?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, yeah, they
Yeah.
have the character that we know today, but
That's why his colors match the Coca-Cola logo.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, very, very true. Well, listen, I mean, for anybody who knows me, they know what I believe. I say the real life Santa Claus are truckers all year long. You know, we're pulling that sled
Yeah.
all year long. So uh, Pastor, um, any final thoughts on Christmas and how one should celebrate and the way we see it today, and those that are like, wow, you shouldn't celebrate it. It's man made, and why not celebrate the code? Well, actually, before the last thoughts, why not celebrate those, Pastor? Those are actually in the Bible. I don't hear enough of that. Why not celebrate those, Pastor?
The Lord gave the Jewish people, um, I don't know if you would call them holidays or days to remember. He never instituted for us Gentiles to celebrate those things. I don't think we should ignore it. I mean, if it's something that you read or studied about and you're like, you know what, I like that. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, I want to implement that or something like that, in my household. Nothing wrong with it. But the Bible never says for us to celebrate those. Those are for Jewish holidays, Jewish festivities. Most of them are to remember what happened when they were taken out of Egypt, when they were taken out of slavery, um, uh, when Esther, what I mean, helped basically stop the Jews from being killed, and there's a lot of holidays that are in remembrance of the Jewish history, in their nation and in their traditions. I think that's why it was. I don't think God ever intended for the world to celebrate those. But again, I don't think. I think they're all beautiful. I think they're all. There's beautiful things about it, like you said. You like that, the fact of going out. And what did they do? Like they put palm leaves and kind of made like a little tent, right?
Yeah. So basically, for those who don't know, I'll just just to put it in layman terms. I mean, basically, you go out camping, you get away from all the hustle and bustle, and you live in a tent out in the wilderness, and you live off the land,
Yeah.
with your loved ones, and it's a time that you spent there to connect with God. And I know there's a lot more to it. I'm just kind of like briefly
Yeah.
going over it,
I'm not
but
a super scholar with the Jewish holidays, but I think it's so they can remember when they were in the wilderness during the time when they left Egypt to go into the promised land. So the people for the Jewish people not to forget the time in the wilderness when God took care of them. I think I could have got that wrong because I'm honestly not looking it up right now, but I think that's the one that celebrates that. Am I correct or you don't know?
I'm not sure. I did read on it, but I couldn't remember it all. But I just thought it was just reading it, I'm like, huh, that actually does sound pretty cool. I would like to maybe one day do that. What I did see, and I looked up a lot of videos on YouTube that
Yeah,
people that do celebrate Sukkot.
I was
Basically,
wrong.
they just go out camping. They
Yeah,
they
yeah,
they go camping and they take tents and they just hang out.
yeah,
They take their Bibles, they pray, they connect with the Lord. They're away for, I think it's 7 days. They're away from all the hustle and bustle, and I
yeah.
just and I'm like, wow, that actually does make sense. So,
So
uh,
actually, I'm gonna fact check myself right now. It's basically the account of the homeward journey of Jacob from Padan Aram, and because of this, so when he was on a journey, they set up booths or sukkot for his cattle as well as a house for himself. So it's a celebration of Jacob's travel. So I fact checked myself.
okay, okay, also known as the Feast of Tabernacles, I believe, and it just yeah, no, it's not
Yeah,
cool,
yeah, Feast
but
of Tabernacles. You're right,
yeah, Feast of
and it goes
Tabernacles.
on for 7 days.
Right, right,
Yeah,
right. Get away for a whole week and just live off, just the land. It sounds good.
man, I think I need to celebrate that.
Hey, Pastor,
Yeah.
any final thoughts on, Christmas, all the way through that we talked about for those that say we shouldn't be celebrating it? It's man-made. It's not biblical. It's not in there. Stop celebrating it.
Mhm.
And also to what Christmas has turned into. Now people are stressed out because they don't know what to get. And it's like you're not supposed to be stressed out.
Yeah.
It's not about gifts. And you know what? I'll go one further on this as well, right? For those that say, because I hear people say this all the time. We know it's not about the gifts. I know it's not. Okay, go to your Christmas party with no gifts. See what happens.
Yeah.
See if you're invited next year,
Yeah.
because obviously you're there to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ.
Mhm.
So go to your Christmas parties, whether it's friends, family, whatever, and show up with no gifts. And if anybody asks you, say like, tell them what you're telling me or anybody that asks you about that, and say like, Christmas is not about gifts; it's about the Lord Jesus Christ, about His birth, and that's what we're here to celebrate. Let's see how well you're received. But I mean that's just a little something out there to
Yeah.
show that I think Christmas has done away with Jesus, even though people do want to acknowledge it with their words that
Yeah.
it's about Jesus. Their actions shows that no, it's not. We'll just say it with our words, but our actions is going to show that it's not about Jesus, that it's about gifts, it's about maybe some alcohol, it's about spending time with family, and it's
Yeah.
whatever it is. But um your final thoughts, Pastor, on both the ones that say you shouldn't celebrate it, and for the ones that say, or what Christmas has turned into.
I think the ones that don't celebrate it, I wouldn't. I'm not going to try to change your mind, but I would say at least let your convictions be true, and at least be an open-minded Berean. In other words, hear what I'm saying and really take it into prayer. Because if you don't want to celebrate it because you have strong convictions, at least let those convictions be for true reasons. Find out the true reasons. For those of you that say, "Man, this has turned into something else," you or I can't change the world. We can't change the commercialization of Christmas, but what we can do is change our family, and change the culture of our family. Especially if I'm talking to a man right now, the Bible says that you're the head of your household. So your wife and your kid are going to follow what it is that you say. And if you make it a tradition of just gifts and you leave Jesus outside, that's on you. But if you are a man and say, I want to bring something of substance to Christmas, then teach them, lead them. You have the God-given right to teach your wife and your children that it's about Jesus, and bring it back. Change the tradition. Read the gospel. Make it something every year. Or if your kids are little and they don't understand, tell them in a story. Get a children's book about the birth of Jesus, and just talk to them every single year so they know, so they grow with that tradition to say, yeah, we celebrate Christmas, but this is how we do it. We talk about Jesus, and I think that's the best thing you can do. Here's the thing, the best gift you could ever give your children is Christ. There's
Mhm.
nothing better. There's no gift, no matter how expensive, electronics or whatever. Jesus is the best gift because he's an eternal gift. Every other gift, what happens to it? It breaks down, ends up in the trash. You find it under the bed full of dust. You find if it's a little monito, the legs are broken, the head's broken off. Christ is a gift that's eternal, and that's the best thing that you can do. So change. Don't follow the world. Don't follow what everybody else does, and stand for your own household and stand for your own family and say, in my house, we will serve God, and that's all I can say pretty much, is honor God.
You know what you said about the gift there, Pastor. That's why next Christmas, for those of you watching, that's why next Christmas people are expecting another gift, because what you gave them last Christmas is all old and worn out. So that's why they're expecting another gift. Which, by the way, I want to clarify something. I am gonna get gifts. I haven't gone shopping yet. I'll give my well, I shouldn't say it on here in case they watch, but I'm gonna get them just a little small something. But no, I'm not stressed out whatsoever. No, not many people are getting a gift from me. Believe me when I tell you, my sons are, and I'll give my mom a little something nice.
Yeah,
Um, my final thoughts on all this is that I like conversations, not debates,
yeah,
and I see a lot of fighting verbally with believers in debates, like, I know, right? And it's like,
yeah,
one of the easy answers is, hey, pray about it.
yeah,
Pray about it. Which, yeah, you should pray about it. However, Pastor, if you and I both pray about it, and you know God tells you, hey, you should celebrate it, or it's cool if you celebrate it, and I get the word where it's like, oh no, I got something different. I got that we shouldn't celebrate. Well, now, you know, where, where do we lie with that, right? Um, the reason why I don't like debates is because you're going in there believing that you're, or knowing that you're right. So thus, nobody's really gonna hear out the other person, as
yeah,
opposed to let's have a conversation. Um, is Christmas in the Bible? No, it's not. And I think there's room to actually learn about that and say, like, or even question it a little bit and say, like,
yeah,
okay, I kind of understand it. There's a lot of things that aren't in the Bible that maybe we need to look at our lives. Um, that being said, I like what you brought up, Pastor. There's a lot of things that we touch, that we use, that has paganism in it.
Yeah.
Um, I love Christmas. Me, myself, personally, um, I actually am going to be celebrating Christmas, but I want to start bringing back the meaning of Christmas for
Yeah.
those that say why you celebrate Christmas is Jesus. Then okay, let's start doing that, as opposed to, what commercials and marketing, what they do with Christmas.
Yeah.
So for everybody, if you're not going to celebrate, so be it. If you are going to celebrate, I will. And you say you're doing it for, to celebrate the birth of Jesus, then really do it for that.
Yeah.
Really do it for that. And then there's everybody else that, to them, they're just going to use it as a day off to party, you know. Um, so everybody has theories. We don't really, I don't think anybody can really say, hey, this is true. No, nobody was really there. I've heard so many, hey, you know what? Uh, Christmas was brought to take over the paganism holidays. And then I've heard the opposite. No, actually, we celebrated before. And then pagans came and tried to do
Yeah.
whichever one, whichever one. But the reason why you're going to celebrate, make that the reason.
Yeah.
So, and I got a lot of work to do myself in that. I'm talking to myself on this as well.
Yeah.
I personally have a lot of work to get done in that category. So that's what I'm gonna do. But
Yeah.
I do like Christmas. So.
Me too.
Oh man. Well, Pastor, it's been quite the conversation. It's always good talking to you, sir.
Oh,
And anything else before we wrap it up?
no, but if somebody really wants to get somebody gifts, I have a boot line, right?
I do. I do. You showed them on the David Rocha channel.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I got a lot of different boots and kicking that off, and it's been going pretty good. Just kind of having a slow start right now. I don't want to full blast put ads or nothing because I want to get my inventory up because they're all handmade.
Okay.
But in case somebody likes cowboy boots, they can go to the website. It's www.truewearapparel.com. Just saying, since people are in the mood of giving gifts.
Give them the boot.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, you know what? I want to get that information, Pastor, and pin it down in the comment section in case people want to go to the website and
Yeah.
get themselves some boots. So
Yeah. We got shirts too. We got House Arrest shirts, identified shirts, a few different shirts on there now.
okay. All right. Well, we shall leave it right there. That is one Mr. Pastor David Rocha from House of Rest Church, a good friend of mine. Thecholotrucker. Merry Christmas to everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to all. As always, live your life like you're on the road. Be aware of your surroundings. And always keep a safe distance. Blood, make sure you live below to make spam. Until next time, this is Ed the Thecholotrucker for my good friend, one Mr. Pastor David Rocha. Over and out.